So I'm here with Araminta Barbour on the ferry heading from Pequera to Punta Arenas in Costa Rica, where we're driving towards San Jose. And just before we get there, and we have no time to talk about anything else, we're taking a moment to have a couple of conversations, a couple of frank conversations. So here we go, check it out. If we're using the phrases like masculine and feminine as archetypes to describe energies, each man and woman has both these archetypes, which is obviously part of the duality world. So if we play with these archetypes, what do they look like, and how does that, why is it difficult for man and woman to come together?
Well, one of the frames that we've been working with more and more is just focusing on what is responsible, mature, responding to situations when we're triggered, as opposed to a level of reactionary, irresponsible behavior when our stuff comes up. Within ISTA, we look at these core wounds that we all have, that if you really want to track something that's, like, let's say I notice that something really affects me, I'm out of my emotional ease, there's big emotional waves moving through me, there's some sort of thought feeling that gets down to a core belief that's usually one of two. And sort of in the feminine aspect is that I'm unlovable, the masculine that I'm powerless. So then every reaction, every response to that is an attempt to either avoid feeling those difficult feelings, or to prove to ourselves that we are lovable or that we are powerful. Often when, or let's say for you, what I heard you say was when you're triggered, you may respond with, you sometimes feel like you come up with some anger, and that kind of asserts your boundaries back. And that would be a way of kind of responding or reacting to that powerlessness piece. But underneath the surface or in the shadow is still that core wound of being unlovable. So dropping into the part that actually wants communion and connection from the heart, and dropping into the fact that even in the midst of a really bad fight, we're all kind of doing the best we can, and that even though we recognize that in ourselves and our kind of survival structures. So how do we bring compassion to ourselves when we find ourselves, let's say, acting out of anger in order to protect and defend ourselves? Women may often go into depression and fear and grief and sadness, right? Oh, poor me, and go into victim and cry. This is generalizing again. I don't know if this is accurate. But what goes in the shadow is, in this feeling of I'm unlovable, you're abandoning me, I'm being rejected, and go more into this kind of wounded heart space. But what's in the shadow is they're also feeling powerless. So actually can serve to run the opposite pattern that we may usually do. If I usually get angry, where can I go and touch my grief? If I usually feel lost and energy goes into collapse, where can I actually own that fire and that sort of roar, and just check where I am in maturity and being able to respond from around both of those types of incoming arrows. So I'm happy to say, let's say my default would be maybe to more go into, it triggers that core belief of being unlovable. So then my default can be a lot of like grief and low energy and separation and this kind of sinking into the swamplands, right? It's like earth and watery, mushy, marshy.
So for me, the big question is this idea that we want women to take more of their space in society, but it's almost as though they are modeling this unhealthy masculine in order to be seen, to be heard, to have their rights met, and all of that. So how do we get into this balance without women just repeating all the mistakes men made and just be bitching about the patriarchy, but actually using the model of the patriarchy as their way of dealing with any situation?
Yeah, I think it's we have to be really aware that we're not setting up false dualities, false dialectics, and false choices. So it's either this or that. It's too simplistic. So I think there is this idea that women will uprise and will find their voice and find their power And our models for that has often been this unhealthy use of fire and this unhealthy use of... So we're learning, but we have to give ourselves permission to understand what these energies feel like in our own body. And we kind of learn to integrate them by running them in safe containers with a lot of consciousness, so we can become more and more mature and masterful at allowing these life force energies to inform our responses. We're still looking for this very healthy integration of presence and sovereignty and personal boundaries.
We still we don't have the model yet. I don't think the models are there. What can we consider a model?
I mean, I feel like most political leaders, we don't even expect to trust them anymore. So the model that we work with, at least overtly, we're so emotionally detached from in as far as being able to engender real brotherhood, sisterhood, trust, and genuine courage in making change that we want to make. It's like we're going into survival, defensive, more reptilian, primal manifestations on the external.
So that brings us to the next phase. It's like we're going through a time period where we've elected the ultimate model of the unhealthy masculine, the father figure that's going to just do it and take care of it and doesn't care if he hurts people when he's taking care of business, because that's what the father does. So this is what we've incarnated. So what can we talk about in terms of what path we're on?
It is like the shadow is so overtly in our face now, and the gifts in that is I have this phrase that's been coming in my head a lot around man standing down. So as far as a metaphor for the patriarchy, there's been an aspect of power over and power under dynamics that humanity consciousness has been exploring for at least a few thousand years, and it's like a choice point time to recognize it for how all the different types of experiences has given humanity what we've learned about our own creative capacity, and to take back ultimately this idea that anyone outside of us give our power away so much, to the extent that we've stayed in child and victim and allowed structures and thought forms around us to take the reins. So I feel like we're being invited into that so clearly now that it's a great invitation for a consciousness shift, as people recognize that there is no real external safety and there is no real ability to trust anyone outside of ourselves. And if we source more from whether it's a political party or a religion or wherever we're putting our trust in, that's ultimately not self-sourced, it's going to test our faith and make us question, to inherently get us so deeply anchored, primarily getting that it's only that internal voice that we are adhering to